The following is a paid program by the Whitley Law Firm. Welcome to Attorneys on Call, the program that gives you free legal information from the Whitley Law Firm. Now, here's your host, Drew Smith.
Well, and we are so happy that you're here today for this edition of Attorneys on Call. Bob Whitley has written a book called Attorney on Call, Lessons from a Life in the Law. Bob, this is a tremendous book. I think you've done a fantastic job writing this. I've read the book, and what I particularly like are the stories that you tell of the people that you've met through your more than 40-year career practicing law here in North Carolina. But first, let me say congratulations on completing this book. I know you've been at this for a while. Why did you decide to write the book?
Well, Drew, there were probably a lot of reasons. One, as you mentioned, I have practiced law for more than 40 years, and I have been so fortunate to cross paths with just some wonderful people and families, and they're the people I grew up with as a kid in eastern North Carolina, and now they're my clients and their families, and I've just, I've had a lot of trials that were so dramatic at the time, and I think, so much of our life passes us by, and we don't appreciate what's going on at the present time.
Sure.
We're living day to day. And so I just had a chance to reflect and think about, just from the beginning, the people I've represented, the people I've helped, I've gotten to know and care about, and I have learned a lot of lessons, and I've learned them from my clients. And I guess starting out in eastern North Carolina, I grew up in a family. There were 5 of us children, and I was the middle child. And my dad, his family grew up in the Depression. So he grew up very poor, and he believed in hard work. It's what got his family through. And he believed it about us children, and that we needed to work. And so we did. And my dad, I dedicated the book to my dad and to my mom. My dad taught me so much about hard work. And Drew, it kind of has come all the way around, because I have found over the years, you don't necessarily have to be the smartest lawyer in the courtroom, but you do have to be the most prepared lawyer. And you're not going to be prepared unless you just work everything about a case. And maybe it was because I went back to my hometown of Kinston as a young lawyer, and I was just worried, are people going to hire their paper boy, the kid that mowed their yards and worked in tobacco, and I'll give a little history of that's in the book about my work history growing up in eastern North Carolina. But Daddy made us work.
And you talk about your dad quite a bit in the book, and what an influence he was on your life. So tell me a little bit more about your dad and how he played such a crucial role in developing you as a young man.
Well, he taught me maybe 3 things that have carried me, and I think are a large part of the success I've enjoyed over the years. One was to work hard, and and I've just have, being in that courtroom, usually in the beginning, always against a more experienced, older lawyer. I felt like I had to work hard, and I did, and he taught me that. Also, to be honest, I remember well one Saturday morning. My older brother Jack and I and my dad, we went down to Sears early in the morning, and I forgot what we went for, but on the way back, Jack had a paper clip in his hand that he had picked up at Sears, and I don't know whether he picked it up on a shelf or on somebody's desk.
A paper clip.
A paper clip. And my dad stopped the car, turned around, and we went back to Sears, and Jack had to go in and apologize for stealing that paper clip.
Oh, wow.
And that has always resonated. I mean, my dad, he was hardworking, he was tight, and he was extremely honest. The third thing that he taught, besides the honesty and the hard work, was to treat people fairly and to be good. There's a quote in the book that I say, and I'll say this to young lawyers or to any lawyer, be a nice person who just happens to be a lawyer. And when I remember going anywhere I went with my dad, he spoke to everybody. every race, every age group, and he always was, and he was a wonderful salesman. That's what he did for a living. And maybe I got a little bit of that from him, but he did teach me those things, and they have carried me through. If you do that, if you're always honest with your clients and with the court, with the insurance companies, even when sometimes the truth sounds like it's harmful, it's just a better way to be.
Now, and 40 plus years practicing law, you've got what's in the book? Other than the fact that you talk about your dad and you talk about growing up in Kinston, working in tobacco fields, and doing all that hard work, but what else do the folks need to know about what's in this book?
Well, I do talk about that. I talk about my paper routes and throwing papers from a bicycle into yards. And it was back when you didn't wrap papers, so if it rained and snowed, it was really horrible. After I went to high school in Kinston, I then went to college at East Carolina University. It was the closest one to home. And Dad's rule about college and expenses was he would pay one semester tuition.
Okay.
And if he did that, if we wanted to badly enough, we would figure out how to pay for the rest of it.
Okay.
So I had to work my way through college at East Carolina. I worked at Wachovia Bank, both in the summertime and during the school year. And there's a little bit in the book about the Richardson Foundation that kind of got me in the door at Wachovia. And when I went to East Carolina, I was always kind of had an interest in student politics. And I was elected president of the freshman class, and then later I was elected vice president of the student government. And then my junior year, I was elected president. So I was always involved. And Drew, that was a paying job. The East Carolina University student government at that time had one of the largest student budgets in the whole country.
Interesting.
Because everything was under the student government, the entertainment, the plays, the speakers. And as vice president, I was in charge of class rings, and I still have my East Carolina class ring.
And so that helped put you through school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that was an interesting time in America's history when you were at East Carolina. There were some things that you went through personally. There, of course, was happening in Ohio, the Kent State shootings, and that was such a pivotal point in our history. And then also, as we recall, there was that horrible plane crash with Marshall University and the football team after they came to play East Carolina, flying back to West Virginia, and that plane crashed. Tell us your recollection of what
Well, I remember the Kent State. I was president of student government at the time, and I just remember even chanting, and I had kind of long hair, Kent State, is it too late? Because it was terrible. College students were gunned down. I think it was National Guard or some law enforcement, and I know they didn't intentionally do that, but those students were just protesting. They were protesting the war. The Vietnam War was going on at that time. Later in the fall, in November, we had a football game one Saturday with Marshall. And as the president, I got to sit in the box with the president of the university, and most of the time would read or say the prayer at the football game before every game. You would have an invocation, and I did it for that game. And of course, when we got the news, it was just horrible to think you'd sit there and watch that team play, and they were gone. They were just all gone in that plane crash. And Dr. Leo Jenkins, our president, and a small group of us, the football players and the co-captains and the football coach, we went to a memorial service for the Marshall University. And one thing I remember too, Drew, is at the urging of the football coach, the student government bought a game tape. Back then it was like 8 millimeters or whatever, but it was a film of the game that we presented to every family of those players. The coach, I wasn't sold on it in the beginning, but the coach said, Bob, they lived and ate football, and their families did too. Even if they never watched that game, just the fact that they would have it could mean something to them. So that was kind of what was going on at East Carolina. We had issues with co-ed visitation in the dorm, and So we boycotted downtown Greenville one time, and
you were a little bit of an activist.
well, I didn't think so, but I did get a few letters from my teachers and principals back in Kinston telling me to please calm down a little bit. But it was part of growing up. It was part of my life, and I wouldn't give anything for it.
And the book is called Attorney on Call, Lessons from a Life in the Law. We've been talking about Bob Whitley's new book, chronicling more than 40 years as an attorney in North Carolina. Now we want to tell you how you can get the book. You can simply call the 800 number on your screen. You can also go to the website, whitleylawfirm.com, and Bob will autograph a copy for you, and we will send you the copy of the book. So once again, Attorney on Call, Lessons from a Life in the Law, Bob Whitley's new book. He will autograph a copy and send it your way. Just call the 800 number, go to the website as well. Some of the great stories in this book we're going to talk about next, right here on Attorneys on Call.